Thank you very much. I should update that photo. I'm not happy with that. My name's Jonathon Ford. I'm a Noongar man. I've got connections to Noongar country. Before we start, I'd just like to say a big kaya. Thank you. And to be honest, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I would have said kaya to a room, you could have heard a penny drop, you know. So that's how far we've come as Noongar people and as a society too, that, you know, you could say kaya to a room and you get a big kaya back. So if you don't know, Mick, kaya means hello in Noongar. So there you go. I'm not too sure the word for hello where you come from, but please find out, and viewers online as well. So Noongar, so in my language I say kaya moris mam and moris yogas nyan jerp and wakan and Noongar boja nyan damigama where and jening nijuboja kora nyan Noongar more jening nijuboja knitting nyan Noongar more jening nijuboja kedla. I'd say my nyan dama jening calling nijuboja nyan jening calling nijuboja nyan calling jening calling nijuboja. And I'm going to mix the translate, yeah? No, he's not going to translate. In my language, I've just said hello to all you deadly men and women. It's an honour and a privilege for me to be here tonight with you all. We just acknowledge that we're in the spirit of our ancestors that watched over this country since the beginning of time, and the spirit of our ancestors to watch over this country today. I'd like to say my grandmother's feet, my grandfather's feet walk this land, my feet walk this land, and my children's feet walk this land, so our connection to country will always be strong. We acknowledge that we're here on Noongar country, and I come to a place like this and we know, and I'm going to talk a little bit about culture, and it'll all add up to when I get to the end, so don't feel as though we're in a cultural awareness session, which we specialise in, by the way. But we meet here today, and this area here is known as the Muru region, right? So Wajak is the Perth area, and there's 3 local governments here in Wajak, and this is the Muru. Across the river, the Burswood side, you've got the Beerloo, and then as you go towards Coburn, you've got the Bilya, yeah? So you had Noongar as a big clan, 14 nations. You had Wajak, and this is the Wajak dialect, yeah? Or the speaking of the Wajak language, which is very similar across Noongar language. And then you've got here the 3 different regions. When the British arrived, in 1829 here in Western Australia, the boss of the Muru region was Yelagonga. So we acknowledge that we meet here on the Muru region under the governance and guidance of Yelagonga. And the funny thing about when the British arrived, and I always kind of kick myself because the British arrived in 1829 and we had 60,000 years. In my language, we got a word called the knitting. In my language, the knitting refers to the cold times. So when do you think the cold times were?
Ice Age.
The Ice Age. I have a word in my language that means Ice Age, because we were here 60,000. We were here during the Ice Age. And the way I can compare it is Stonehenge, last week. Pyramids, yesterday. The ice melted 12,000 years ago, yeah? What an amazing language and culture we have here in Noongar country, that I have a word that connects me to this land past the Ice Ages, yeah? And that's really important for us, because I meet here and I look and I see the Swan River, and I know the dreaming story of the Waggle, the rainbow serpent, that created the land and the waters. And it's a 3-hour story, so take a seat, relax, yeah? Put your feet up, no. In about 3 seconds, this story tells us that when the rainbow serpent, the Waggle, the creator, created the land, after everything was created, there was a selection process, or the plants and the animals. The trees would go off and the lights would go off. I'm already black enough, I need some lights, yeah? There was a selection process, and all the animals would go off. And they say, the little Nyan, the echidna, would say, I can't be the carers for everything. I can't look after this land because I only got little arms. So he'd go from a spirit into a physical form. And he would tell Noongar, he'd say, you can use some of me, but don't use all of me, because if you use all of me, there'll be none of me. And every single plant, tree, animal took the same process of going from spirit form into physical form. So when the British arrived in 1829 and says, okay, you need to change your ways, put some clothes on first of all, and then you need to start to buy and sell and change your values, have value for $1. Yeah, start to change your values. Then they say, okay, you need to start to produce, cut down that tree and make it into a fence because it has value. Okay, let's look at better ways. We need things that are going to last longer. So let's start introducing plastics. Yeah? And then we get to 2023 And we look back in 1829 and the journey we've made to society, and they say, okay, we need to go back to using renewable resources and living off the land and making sure we don't impact the environment. And as a Noongar, we sit here and we think, we were there. We were there. In less than 200 years, you walked us from renewable energy, renewable resources, living off the land. We net zero carbon emissions, neutrality. We were minus. We were adding to the environment. So that's the kind of inside joke we have when we hear carbon neutral and all these other things, because that's where we were. So now we're telling people, okay, nobody knows this stuff better than us. We've got 60,000 years, like Emily, that was perfect, yeah? Follows straight into my presentation, because we've had 60,000 years of looking after country. And when I come to a place like this, I see songlines, I see creations, yeah? We meet not too far, we've got Budja Meelup, Yort Wording, because our songlines are like maps, right? And this will all add up when I get to the end. Because these maps, we sing them in songs, and they take us from point A to point B as the police go past. And for example, in Fremantle, there's a songline for 7 sisters. There's 7 hills in Fremantle, the 7 sisters. And if you don't know, the 7 sister story connects us to the 7 sisters in the sky. There's 7 clusters of stars that refer to 7 sisters, and actually connects to Greek mythology as well. 5 of those sisters are gone. There's only 2 sisters left. So if someone in traditional times would try and make their way from Alice Springs, because those songlines extend that far, you could sing a song that would tell you how to get from point A to point B all the way to Fremantle, they'd be lost because there's only 2 hills left when there were 7, yeah? And this is what we look at. When we look at the environment, we see songlines, we see creation stories, we see totems, yeah? And I can't see the clicker. So one of the things in my culture, and I laugh because last time I was in this room, one of my elders, Uncle Charlie Kickett, did a welcome. And it's supposed to go for 5 minutes, and he took 35 minutes. Lisa was here. Where's Lisa? Yeah, so when you ask an elder a question, I'm very fortunate to spend a lot of time with elders. You ask an elder a question, they will tell you a story. And you've got to find your answer in those stories, yeah? So just like those elders, I'm going to tell you a story, yeah? And I hope you get the answers that you're looking for out of this story. I'm from a company called Kambarang Services. We specialise in consultancy around Aboriginal affairs. And in our culture, I'll have to keep going on the time because us Noongars, we can talk. People are asking me, are you nervous? And I'm like, bro, I've got the microphone, you should be nervous. So for us, it's all about relationships. When you work with Aboriginal communities, it's relationship before transaction, yeah? You have to sit and yarn. So I need to explain who I am. So my career was in health. I founded an Aboriginal health centre when I was 26, and I did that for 12 years. And I don't have a health qualification at all. I actually didn't have any qualification when I founded the service. I was Googling ATO compliance, thanks to the internet, yeah? And I had a lot of great mentors, non-Aboriginal CEO mentors as well, so I could walk both well. So I spent all this time in health, and my dad was a government director, different government agencies, and he left government to start Kambarang Services, and we deliver cultural awareness sessions, reconciliation action plans, and then we started to get in this space of projects. Things like Common Ground, the new homeless 15 stories or 13 stories or something. So we bring the Aboriginal lens to significant projects. And one of the toughest questions we get asked in cultural awareness is, what do Aboriginal people want? He's so angry, what do you want? And my dad, he's a bit sick with his jokes. He says, well, we want you all to jump on boats and go home. But that ain't gonna happen, yeah? So these are the things we want, yeah? So today I just want to elaborate a little bit on the expectations of Aboriginal people in this space. Where could Aboriginal people sit within those 16 or 17 items of SDG, yeah? Because our dreaming tells us, our Creator tells us that it's our role to care for country. to look after the land and everything on it. So it's almost like a religion for us to look after land, yeah? So what role can we play in this space, particularly since we've been doing it for 60,000 years? So in the interest of telling the story, I could tell you this is what you should do. This is what you could do. But instead of doing that in the blackfellow way, I'm going to say this is what we've done. And then that way you can start to say, oh, it's actually been achieved. So we could actually start to do something very similar, yeah? So this is just a bit of an idea. So when we do projects, we use the Kambarang framework. Now, I've been very fortunate to work with a number of senior leaders, Uncle Barry Maguire, Uncle Richard Wally, you know, all of those types of uncles I've got. It's funny, someone like Uncle Richard, like he gets called doctor, but then I call him uncle. So uncle trumps doctor every day of the week, yeah? So we never refer to him as Dr. Richard. But putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, this is kind of what we do. When we go into a project, the first thing we look at is governance, and we look at making sure that the elders have a position. Now, hands up if you want to do something with Aboriginal communities, but you're fearful of making a mistake. A lot of people want to do something, but they don't want to offend. What is the first step? How do we get there, yeah? So I hope that's what you get out of today too, just a little bit of confidence, because if you do nothing, the result is always going to be nothing, yeah? And I'm hoping that my little quick discussion today has a few penny drop moments, and I'm going to do a little exercise with you just quickly to initiate one of those penny drop moments, yeah? What are some of the negative stereotypes towards Aboriginal people? Just shout them out. Drug addicts. No hopers. Yeah, I'm not going to call you racist if you say it, yeah? And we're not filming anybody, so nobody's going to say, yeah, you were racist. So what was that one? Aggressive, yeah.
Go walkabout.
Walkabout, yeah. Didn't turn up to work. Jerry's sacked someone because they went walkabout, yeah. Okay, so you start to get the gist. What are some of the things you see here on the main street? Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, all those things, yeah? Okay, what are some of the positive things towards Aboriginal people and communities that you know? Stereotypes. Culture, care for country, footy. Not everybody is a good footballer. I've got cousins I wouldn't even pick for a mixed netball team, yeah? So yeah, but yeah, culture, art, songs, yeah? All right, part. Family. Family's everything to us, yeah? Someone asked me, what's the best thing about being Aboriginal? Family, connection to country. What's the worst thing about being Aboriginal? Family. Yeah? All right. What are some of the negative stereotypes my mob will have towards your mob? Racist? Greedy? Invaders? Pardon? Thoughtless, yeah. Wasteful, yes. Exploitative, yes. All of the above? Disrespectful, yeah. Okay, cool. What are some of the positive stereotypes that my mob will have towards your mob? When I do this on Teams, I have to wave to make sure that it hasn't crashed, but it's that reaction, yeah? And this is the penny drop moments that I really want you to understand, because if you have never thought, well, what do Aboriginal people do think about us positively, yeah? Then you can start to understand, well, maybe I need a lens that gets me to understand what Aboriginal people want through the corporations that I'm a part of, through the agencies that I work with, yeah? So, this is just a bit of a touch on, because preserve, protect, promote. And everything we do with government, corporates, whoever, the real values that we hold is around preserving, protecting and promoting. Protecting the land, preserving culture and language. There is less than 25 fluent speakers of Noongar language. It is classified as extinct or gone, yeah? So this is important to bring it back. So when Metronet does a project and they name all of their train stations or co-name them with Noongar language, how important is that? Yeah? It's essential to bring it back, because not educating 97% of the population, but also educating us as well around our language and connecting the language to songlines and environment. Protecting the land, yeah? I remember Jetsy, right? One of the executive jobs, tourism, science and industry at that department. One of the executive does a presentation and they track the state's GDP, right? Tracking well, dip, tracking well. They said, oh, what happened here? They went back and they backtracked and they had to do an assessment. Why did we had a dip? What happened there? Juukan Gorge. I won't name any mining companies, but when that mining company destroyed the heritage of Aboriginal peoples and culture, the state's GDP dipped. And I thought, wow, how empowering is that for us as Aboriginal people to know that if you destroy our heritage, the global market will respond. Yeah? So you look at economic development and you're thinking that destroying land, environment, heritage is going to increase in, the economy. But after review, it's actually going to be more harmful. So why not embrace our heritage, our culture, our history, our environment, and protect those things, yeah? The other thing now, we talk about ancient, historical, contemporary. I see this building, this new one, yeah? And no disrespect to ECU. Like I said, you should be nervous when you give me the mic. When I see that, what I see is a story, and the story goes like this. Ken Wyatt's wife, Auntie Anna Wyatt, she rings me up, she says, John, guess what? Guess what I found? Because she oversees the state library. She says, that block of land was gifted to an Aboriginal husband and wife who were the first couple legally married in Western Australia. The Archbishop pushed the governor to actually give them land when they weren't allowed to own land. And they were gifted that parcel of land. But he died and she couldn't keep it because women weren't allowed to own property back then unless they were going to have a male child. And she wasn't pregnant at the time. They waited, no child come up, so the land was gifted back, yeah? Now, Mick's standing there, so it tells me I've got to wind up and hurry up, yeah? But when we operate, and I'll give reference to Uncle Richard Wally, because when we look at things, it's never isolated. When we look at these things, they're like Noongars, it's all related, yeah, like our mob. So we look at Karajan, which is knowledge. We look at Budja, which is the land. Our word for Budja is land, our word for pregnant is Budjari. So our connection to country comes through our language. We are connected to country the day we can see through language, yeah? And then we look at Boya. Boya means money. But that connects us to the social, yeah? So for us, we can't really isolate Karajan, Budja and Boya because it connects us to everything. Just like the freshwater catchments linked to the Derbil Yerrigan, which link to the Derbil Narrow, which links to the Warrani. It all flows together, yeah? And then we look at recognition, reform, repair. When I speak about the Muru, the Bilu, the Bilya, there's 4 skin groups that our people had: Ballarat, Tonderak, Naganak, and Didarak. I don't have my skin groups anymore. That was lost. Probably one of the biggest regrets for me is not having a skin group because that was lost through colonisation. But the mob in Balgo do, and other remote communities, and because of climate change, they might be too hot for them to live there. So I just put this lens on it too, that if we don't start to really reduce climate, you're going to have climate refugees. People who are going to have to leave their land because it's no longer sustainable to live there, yeah? So we could talk about plants, we could talk about animals, but the third one that we need to be mindful of too now is actually people, not having that. And if you remove them from their country and they can't maintain their songlines or their belief systems or their skin groups, because their language is different to mine, their skin groups are different to mine, their dreaming stories are different to mine. And if they have to leave because of climate change and they lose that, it's another word for it. Not extinction, it's called genocide. Yeah? So now we're looking at not just climate refugees, but potential genocide of people, languages and cultures, yeah? So, this is why it's important for us to start to have this lens and have an understanding and a framework and really look at preserve, protect, promote the ancient, the historical, the contemporary. We engage with elders, leaders, community. We understand and extract the Karajan, the knowledge of the land, the Budja, the environment, and we acknowledge the Boya, the economic systems, all the social frameworks within there. And we look at recognition, reform and repair. So if we've done damage, whether it be climate or otherwise, sustainable, whatever otherwise. Let's start to prepare that stuff for our Noongar people, because you look at Bullabada, a great example, the new museum. The Premier said, we want to be unique, one of a kind, innovative. What is the one thing that you will find here that you will not find anywhere else on the planet? Noongar people, Noongar culture, Noongar language. You will not find that anywhere else on this planet. Same with every other language group throughout Australia. So you've got that ability to bring all of this content in and look at the design and give us a role within those 17 pillars. And it shouldn't be on us to go to you to say, look, this is how we could fit in. The challenge I'm putting now is actually you guys come back, meet with us and say, this is where we see you can, and have the confidence to do that. And yeah, it might make a few mistakes, but have a crack at it, because if you do nothing, nothing changes, yeah? Thank you.